Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. Yet another wonderful episode tonight. We're going to be speaking to Robert Salas about have world governments conspired to conceal UFO activity. I just wonder, but we're going to find out all about that tonight. But Just Energy Radio is brought to you by soulhealer.com, where you can find out about all the products and services I offer, including medical intuition evaluations, energy healing, and psychic readings. So if there's stuff going on in your life, you need some insight, some guidance, you're having problems at work, the new direction in the path your life should take, give me a call, drop me an email, and we can set up a time for a private consultation. It's also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, where you can jumpstart your intuition today by downloading their free 50-page guide. But I have an exciting announcement from the Institute of Applied Energetics for this month. So all through the month of October, for all of you that have downloaded our Jumpstart Guide, or even if you haven't downloaded the Jumpstart Guide, we are offering a semi-annual blowout sale with huge savings on all of our training programs. So please do check it out. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. A couple of other quick announcements. So from what I understand, my book, E.T. Chronicles, has finally hit the street. And so if you have been wanting to get a copy of that, it's available obviously on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. But if you really want to be extra cool, go to your local bookstore, aka Barnes and Noble, and order a copy there so that they'll put it on their shelves, which would be totally awesome for me. Also, the long awaited for, even on my end, video icon deconstructing our ancients is finally, for how long I've been talking about that puppy, released for digital download on Amazon. So check it out, Icon. IKON, Amazon.com. Download your copy today. Okay, those are my announcements. So let me tell you a little bit about Robert and get him on the air. Robert Salas is a graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy and served 7 years on active duty before separating from the Air Force in 1971. He earned a master's degree in aerospace engineering from the Air Force Institute of Technology and worked as a safety and reliability engineer for Martin Marietta Aerospace and Rockwell International on space shuttle design proposals and Federal Aviation Administration as an aircraft structures certification engineer. Salas has been publicly speaking about his incident at UFO conferences, radio, and television since 1996. So the author of the new book that I have in my hot little hand, Unidentified, the UFO Phenomena, Robert Salas. Hey, Robert, how are you?
Well, hello, Rita. I'm feeling very well and anxious to talk to you.
Well, I am very excited to talk to you because I kind of had a hard time putting your book down. And I'm like, wait, you only have so much time to get through this. So congratulations on a great book.
Well, thank you. And congratulations for reading it. Very few of my hosts actually read before they put me on the air, but
you know, I always go through a book. Always, guaranteed.
Right.
But yours, it was kind of like, well, then what happened? Well, wait a minute. Then what happened? Because you provided information I'd never heard of. So before we get into all of the juice, because I think this is going to be a juicy show, you know, you've had a long and distinguished career in the military and military-industrial complex. What turned you on to UFOs?
Well, it was not of my doing. It just happened to me while I was on duty in 1967. I was a missile launch officer in the Air Force, and on this one evening, March 24th, 67, I was on duty underground, about 60 feet underground, with my commander, Fred Mywalt, when UFO came over. Well, we got a phone call prior to this. We got a phone call from the guards upstairs saying that they'd been seeing strange lights in the sky, making very fast turns, 90-degree turns, and stopping on a dime, that sort of thing. And they just wanted to report it. I didn't know what to think of that. You know, I was not into UFOs. We were, you know, strictly professional Air Force types that we just didn't talk about those sorts of things. And
well, I didn't think they existed in the Air Force world.
No. But then, so I hung up the phone. Then I got another call about 5 minutes later. This time he's screaming into the phone. He's just absolutely frightened, saying that they've got all the guards out with their weapons drawn, and they see this glowing red object hovering above the front gate. It's just a pulsating red-orange light, oval-shaped, some 40 feet long, and they wanted me to tell them what to do next. I mean, it was just a shock. I thought we could have been under some sort of an attack, so I told him to, you know, use whatever force necessary, not to let him in the gated area, or the fenced area. And so he hung up, and then went to tell my commander about these phone calls, and all of a sudden we're getting a lot of bells and whistles and lights going off in the capsule, just a small space down there. And we look over at our status board, and sure enough, the missiles are going no-go or disabled. We were unable to, they were not on alert status. In other words, they couldn't have been launched. So we lost all 10 within a matter of seconds. And when we reported it, the command post back at Malmstrom, which was about 100 miles to the west of us, said that the same thing had happened previously. Well, actually, my commander said the same thing happened at another site. I thought it was that night, but when I started researching this, it turns out it was about a week earlier, 8 days earlier, on March 16th. Same kind of thing happened. UFOs over the launch facilities. By the way, the launch facilities are where the missiles are located are about a mile or two away from this launch control center. And they lost all 10 of theirs, with UFOs being seen overhead by guards and maintenance people. So in the span of 8 days, we lost 20 nuclear missiles.
Like lost forever, or just temporarily lost?
Just temporarily. And by lost, I mean they were disabled. They were not launchable until we sent crews out there to physically retarget the missiles, reorient the missiles. We had a inertial guidance system, and the main fault for these failures was guidance and control system failure. In other words, the guidance system had been upset. But
you know, I just am getting this image of if you shot the missile off, you know, it would just go head over heels, just woo, like a balloon.
Yeah, something
but
like
hopefully
that.
Hopefully not.
Well, that's what they were put in a disabled status. We couldn't have lost him if we wanted to, because the targeting system was upset. In other words, like you say, if it had been possible to launch them, we wouldn't know where the heck they were going. Yeah, that happened March 16th, March 24th, and then right after my incident, we were ordered to the squadron commander's office, and there we met up with the squadron commander and a member of Air Force Office of Special Investigation, and he just shoved a paper in our face and said, "Sign here." And so we had to sign a non-disclosure statement saying we'd never, ever talk about this, whether in or out of the Air Force, or to anyone. And so I signed that paper, and here I am talking to you now.
Oopsie.
Oops.
But I have a whole bunch of questions. So, because you were underground, so technically you did not see and I'm going to say alleged UFOs that were around the base. So what led you to believe that they were UFOs? Were they exhibiting strange behaviors?
Yeah, I didn't see the UFO. We were locked in for 24 hours until relieved by another crew. And like I said, we were underground. We had no windows down there. We had no video upstairs at that time. I don't know if they do now, but so I didn't see the object. But the way it was reported, and the fact that the missiles went down immediately after the report, and the fact that they had no control of our systems upstairs. The guards we had upstairs had no way of interacting with our missiles. In other words, if they had wanted to perpetrate a hoax, they couldn't have done that. So I'm convinced that this did occur as was reported. In other words, there was an object up there. And by the way, this object was seen by other people, not just the guards upstairs. It was seen by, later on, it was seen by people from Boeing, civilian contractors from Boeing. It was seen by other maintenance people. And there was probably more than one UFO we're talking about. So there were multiple sightings of these objects.
Okay, so usually I don't take questions from the chat room so early, but this was a great one, and it fits right into our conversation. So Bill from New York wanted to know, during the Oscar flight and the Echo flight incidents, did radar detect any craft at any time, and did the Air Force ever engage in any of these craft?
Okay, that's a good question.
That is a good question.
On March 24th, there was an ongoing incident. Again, this is the same day as my incident. So, but this one was written up in Blue Book. It was a truck driver driving to Great Falls, Montana. He happened to be driving just outside of Great Falls, and looked to his left and saw this lighted object kind of pacing his truck. And again, it was a white, in this case it was a white object, oval-shaped and bright light. He stopped the truck. The object stopped and hovered over a ravine. The truck driver got out and stopped a passing motorist who also saw the object and asked him to contact the Highway Patrol. The Highway Patrol actually came out, and one of them saw the object and saw the object go down into the ravine. Now, so on this, as a result of this, there was an alert at the base about these UFOs, and actually there were sightings over Malmstrom Air Force Base, including radar. So there was a radar track of an object over Malmstrom on March 24th. This was as reported in the local paper. They actually interviewed a couple of the airmen at Malmstrom. The Air Force never admitted to this, but again, this is a report in the local newspaper. So that's the best I can do as far as radar tracking. At times, there were aircraft scrambled, and there is some indication that an aircraft was scrambled in this particular case, because that was also reported in the Great Falls Tribune.
Okay.
But as far as my UFO, let's call it my UFO, in my incident, I had nobody reported to me that this was tracked on radar over the base. Because again, we were about 100 miles away. We were at a place called Roy, Montana, to the east of Great Falls. So there's no radar. There's no radar stations in that area.
You know, I've worked for the military-industrial complex for many years, and you know, one of the things that I know about their whole mentality is there are systems, and then backup systems, and then redundant backup systems, and then backup of the backup of the backup. And, you know, in my thinking, you know, if you have an ICBM there, it would probably have some kind of a backup system. And so my thought is, you know, kind of supporting what you're saying, that if one system failed, it should have kept the missiles online.
Okay, well, I want to clear up a point. We did not lose electrical power. We had power the entire time, and yeah, we have triply redundant electrical power systems on these missiles. We have local Montana power. We had backup generators. We had batteries. So if any of those systems failed, the other would pick it up. But we didn't lose power. This was what happened was, and this was verified in one of the reports that we got under the Freedom of Information Act, a specific signal, was sent through 60 feet of earth and concrete and penetrated a triply shielded cabling system, triply shielded against EMI, electromagnetic interference, and penetrated this cable and sent signals to each missile separately, and to a particular part of the missile, not just any signal, but this upset a very specific piece of equipment called the logic coupler, which is part of the guidance package for the missile.
Well, you know, that sounds really specific.
Yes. And that's the way it was presented. Yeah.
Were all of the missiles impacted, or was it just some of them?
All of them. Yeah. Now, in my book, Fated Giant, I think I reported that I think up to 8 missiles went down, but that's only because my commander, Fred Mywald, when I finally contacted him, we discussed this. And he remembered only 8 missiles going down, something like that. And I had remembered all 10 going down. The thing is, so much time had passed, nearly 30 years or so, and you know, you just kind of lose some of the details over that span of time, especially since we both signed a document that said we were never to talk about this. The best thing to do is just try to forget it over the years, and I guess we'd try to do our best to do that, but this was such a...
Or not.
Or not, yeah.
In your mind, in working with that equipment, could you think of another explanation that could have caused the no-go reading to come from those missiles? You know, even in that moment.
Oh, in that moment, no. I mean, we had been well trained on the operation of the system, you know, how the system worked, and we couldn't come up with any idea how this happened. We had a what's called a voice recorded system that would give us indications of issues with the missile, you know, technical issues. And we queried all of them. They gave the same message back, guidance and control system failure, every one of them. So that's the only information we had. And of course, we were concerned about what was going on upstairs. We thought we could have been under some sort of an attack upstairs, but we both knew that all the controls for the missiles were in the capsule where we were. So they couldn't have done anything upstairs that would cause this to happen. That's why this was, why I finally concluded this was an extraterrestrial object. It was nothing that, no kind of equipment that we knew of, and we couldn't understand how this could happen. In fact, I was on duty there for 3 years in the same capacity, and nothing like this ever happened before or since.
How long was it before you came to the understanding or thought, I'm kind of looking at that tipping point that this wasn't something explainable in what we know about the world? I mean, without bringing ETs into the picture, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, given after the shock of the incident wore off a little bit, and after we were, basically told to cover this up, we were ordered to cover this up. Of course, you can't stop people from thinking, and of course, I personally thought. And I never talked to Fred Mywald about this afterwards because we were ordered not to. We couldn't even talk to each other about this. But, of course, I started thinking, how could this possibly happen? We never got I was hoping we'd get a debriefing of an investigation that the Air Force conducted that we knew was ongoing, but we never got a debriefing as to what could have caused this. And in fact, all the documents that we've received from the Air Force on the Echo shutdown, none of them have a definitive cause for this. This was being studied by the Air Force, and I got this information from another Air Force officer, at least through 1972. So 5 years later, they're still trying to figure this out.
That's amazing. And so even in everything that they've said, did they ever throw out, well, maybe it was the Russians? I mean, did they start, No,
nobody ever said it was the Russians. Obviously, we would have detected Russian aircraft or on radar that, through NORAD long before they reached Montana. So, no, nobody ever claimed it was the Russians. However, we did get a lot of brass from SAC headquarters, Strategic Air Command headquarters out there after these incidents. And one of the telexes that we have says this is of grave concern to this command, of course, because they could not figure out what happened or why it happened. There was a Boeing investigation. This is written up in Faded Giant and also in my new book, Unidentified. But there was a Boeing investigation because Boeing had the support contract for the Minuteman system. And there was a separate classified Air Force internal investigation of these incidents. And none of them could come up with probable cause.
And so they couldn't even come up with an explanation, because they always come up with some kind of weird story to explain away things that are, I'm going to say, inconvenient.
Yeah.
Did they even try here, or did they just try to put it underneath the carpet?
Well, like I said, what's of interest here is the Boeing team was ordered to conduct an investigation by the Air Force. They did their investigation. They looked at things like computer failures, even psychological aspects of the crew, things like that, all kinds of possible explanations, lightning strike, something like that. Anyway, they came back and said they could find no credible cause, and they were going to write up a report, and the Air Force directed them not to write a final report. I've got this in writing from the head of the Boeing team that did the investigation. The Air Force, like I said, conducted a classified secret investigation, which we have not been able to obtain because it's even though they declassified the Echo incident, we have not been able to retain this classified report about what the Air Force looked into, and it's they never came up with a final definitive cause. That, like I said, they did conclude had a preliminary conclusion that some sort of a signal, external signal, by the way, they said an external signal, not an internal signal, was injected into the system and caused the failure of the logic coupler. But they could not identify the source of the external signal. So what does that say? That says essentially something from outside the system injected a signal and caused the shutdowns.
I don't mean to sound simplistic, but it sounds like they were saying, oh, well, there were people that had some remote controls and they just clicked them all off. I mean,
so that's basically what they're saying, that some unknown source.
And what year was this in?
1967.
So this was like before remote controls on TV, so it wasn't like somebody trying to open their garage door and they shut down all your missiles and stuff.
No, I don't think so.
Well, I'm just checking. Okay, so we had a couple other questions regarding this topic, so let me just go ahead and ask them. And this is from Neutron, and he says, has the U.S. military been sharing data from this phenomena with other governments? And if so, is it all countries with silos?
The answer to that is very likely that there is a sharing of information on UFO cases. And I've spoken about this for about 20 years, and I was in Peru some years back and spoke with a Peruvian officer who said he attended a meeting where there was top brass from the Peruvian Air Force and also the U.S. Air Force and discussing the sharing of information on UFO cases. The U.S. Air Force, wanted to have access to all the significant cases that they had. So I have no doubt that this sharing is going on. And again, I point out in my book, my newest book, that I'm convinced there's enough evidence to show that there's an international cabal of that are controlling this information. In other words, they're probably not even sharing it with their own heads of government. And this is so.
Well, where do you come back to that? Because that's like the next level.
Okay.
Because it's secret.
Yes.
Yes. Wait, there was another question. But I think Neutron's question really was about, have there been incidents like that in other countries that have impacted, in Russia, nuclear sites?
Yes, absolutely. There was one in Russia in 1982. I think it was 82. Excuse me. And in that case, a UFO comes over a nuclear missile site, and actually starts the Russian missile on its launch sequence. Scared the heck out of those people because it was basically a countdown to launch a nuclear missile. And they tried whatever they could to try to stop that. And finally it did stop, but I think they concluded it was the UFO that stopped the launch. So there have been many cases, and I've got at least a dozen in my book, cases involving UFOs and nuclear facilities, either nuclear weapon sites or nuclear power facilities. So, yeah, this has happened all over the world.
And I'm going to go on to add on to RW has a question. I'm going to kind of tack onto this. And his question is, do you feel this was a benevolent act or malevolent act? And if this is from extraterrestrials, which I don't really doubt, you know, why go after our nukes? Why kind of hone in on them?
Yeah. I've concluded that these particular incidents that I've talked about was a benevolent act in the sense that they did not damage our equipment, they did not damage our missiles. They simply wanted to send a message, and the message was get rid of your nuclear weapons, because it's one way that we could annihilate ourselves, destroy most living things on the planet. And even today, as we speak, Rita, we are in danger of nuclear war. I think a lot of people discount that possibility, but the fact is we have 9 countries in the world that have nuclear weapons. Russia recently has brandished the fact that they have nuclear weapons and have threatened to defend Syria if the United States attacks Syria. These are direct comments from Putin. And of course, we've got countries like North Korea, Israel, Pakistan, India, all having nuclear weapons and all showing signs of being warlike. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that we could have a nuclear war. And so a lot of these incidents that I talk about, the objects just come over, they shine a beam of light at times on weapon storage areas, as happened in the Rendlesham case, 1980 in the UK, and fly off. And to me, they're just sending us a message.
And what would that message be? What do you think their message is?
The message is, get rid of your nuclear weapons. You know, we need to abolish all nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are not weapons of war. They are simply weapons of mass annihilation. Mm-hmm. These weapons should never be used in a real war, because there's no stopping the destruction. The destruction is enormous. The Minuteman missile in 1967 that I had control over, and by the way, I and my commander could have launched these missiles, but each one of those missiles had the power of 800 kilotons of TNT. The bomb that hit Hiroshima and Nagasaki had about 15 to 20 kilotons of TNT. So these weapons these bombs are enormous.
You know, and I would think that after you have 1 or 2, you would really have enough. You know, I don't know why we have silos. You know, there are silos all over the U.S. You know, right. Then they're in submarines, and it's kind of like, how many do you really need to annihilate people or annihilate the planet? Because if we go into some nuclear war and then the Russians launch off theirs and then Pakistan launches off theirs, there isn't going to be anybody left. Exactly.
That's the point. And that's why I think their message is strictly one of benevolence. They're talking to us saying, you know, don't be so stupid as to have these things around where some mistake could trigger a nuclear war and you've annihilated yourselves. That's ridiculous.
Well, we are kind of stupid people.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Okay, let me just see if there's any other questions that they had for me in here before I move on. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, another one from Bill. This is a little off topic, but we'll go with it anyway. Does he believe the sightings of Foo Fighters during World War II and the development of nuclear weapons have drawn their interest in our warfaring capabilities?
Yeah, I think they always had interest in our war capabilities. Foo Fighters during World War II were observed by American and German, and the Axis pilots. In fact, even before the first atomic bomb was exploded in 1945, UFOs were observed over Hanford. The Hanford facility is in Washington State, near the Columbia River, near the town of Hanford. But it was producing plutonium for the first atomic bombs. And UFOs were not only seen there, but they were chased by Navy aircraft. So there was a pursuit of UFOs over that facility even before the first atomic bomb. And but UFOs have been seen during every war we've had recently since the 40s, in Korea, Vietnam, even Iraq. I've got one of the stories I've got in my book is about a sighting near Baghdad airport in 2006. A huge triangular craft was seen by a platoon of U.S. Army soldiers just south of Baghdad airport. So, yeah, they're very interested in our warlike capabilities.
Somebody was posting something in the chat room about Fukushima, and even though that wasn't a military installation, it was an energy, or we don't know whether it was military, but at least it was, a nuclear place. When they were having their issues, were there any reportings of activity in and around that location?
I'm not sure about Fukushima. I think I heard some rumor to that effect. However, during it was before and after the oh my God, I forgot the one in Russia and Ukraine, help me out.
Chernobyl.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's okay. I started to totally pull a blank too.
Chernobyl, which was a complete meltdown of the facility. UFOs were seen in that, and that was reported. Actually, there was a report in Pravda, the Russian newspaper Pravda, of people reporting seeing UFOs over the facility during that incident. So I think they are very concerned. By they, I mean the ETs are very concerned about the way we cavalierly handle nuclear energy also. We still don't know how much damage that Fukushima incident has caused to our oceans, to our ocean sea life, things like that. Bad stuff. And by the way, we've again, I go into in my book some of the nuclear accidents that we've had in the past. We've had nuclear submarines that have, been grounded under sea, and I think in one case was never found again. We are sending nuclear material out into space. We've got nuclear radioactive material on Mars. We left some on the moon. The Viking spacecraft is run by nuclear power. So, yeah, we're polluting the space around us even.
All right, this is a question from Canoe, and it's pretty interesting. If our tech allows us to produce antimatter weaponry, should we be seeing them? Should we seeing as they are much cleaner yet more lethal weapons. And so, do you think that they would have as much concern if we made clean weapons of mass destruction as opposed to, ones that produce radiation weapons of mass destruction?
We can play this war game indefinitely. I've got a theory that, and you may or may not agree with it. It's just a theory. It's just speculation, really. That if in the far future, or any advanced civilization far in advance of us, has learned how to keep from fighting wars with each other. Somehow, they've learned how to cooperate without destroying each other. And so I'm hopeful that a civilization that's millions or thousands of years older than our own has learned how not to fight wars and are not interested in weapons of war. Certainly, I don't think the ETs are out to invade the Earth militarily. They may be using us and using our resources on Earth, or just visiting, or just observing. There's all kinds of speculation about that, but certainly, if they wanted to invade with advanced weaponry, they probably would have done it by now, because they've been visiting us for thousands of years.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask this one more question from the chat room, and then we're going to shift gears and talk about secret stuff. Hey, you got a very active chat room today. They're like, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's Bill again. Does Robert think that and I wish they could write stuff that I could read. Does Robert think that the ETs see mankind as a potential threat to other civilizations through the universe, thus watching us closely?
Well, I think that's a very real possibility. If we were to have a nuclear war, or even if we were able to develop propulsion systems to travel to other, even planets within our own solar system that may harbor life, maybe some sort of primitive life. We just don't know what's out there yet. We haven't sent spaceships out there. But if our history repeats, then we would act maybe in the way we acted to our Native Americans here, when a so-called advanced civilization landed here in America, and how they treated the Native Americans.
I would hope not.
I would hope not, but still, that has been our history. And so I think there's concern, and that's probably one of the reasons they have not landed on the White House lawn, even though they easily could, right? Because it's not well protected. But one of the reasons is probably because they don't think we know how to interact with some alien beings. Well, we don't know how to do that well yet, and they're probably hopeful and maybe trying to help us evolve to the point where we are capable of interacting with them in a decent manner, let's say.
We need to have manners. Okay, one more question, then we're changing gears.
Okay.
And this is from Redshift. What are the chances that the incident at the silo was due to some kind of rare atmospheric phenomena like ball lightning and unusual static properties causing an electrical malfunction?
Well, again, the Boeing team looked at those kinds of things. If we had some ball lightning, there was no indication of that. We had clear skies during our incident. I know that I guess ball lightning can occur in clear weather, but there was no indication of that from the topside people. somebody suggested in a recent show I did for Science, the Science Channel, that we had northern lights up there. The northern lights might have caused it, but if that had been the case, we would have had trouble with a lot of other missiles. See, we had over we had over 150 Minuteman missiles on the ready alert at the time in Montana. So, but it was just R-10 that went down, and they went down while this again glowing red object was hovering above the front gate.
I mean, that is really beyond bizarre, but
yeah,
we are moving on, and we're gonna find out about all kinds of secret stuff because inquiring minds want to know everything. So let's start here, and this is what just got me sucked into your book. Because we're going to talk about national secrets, and your book opens with details regarding the Vietnam War. Perhaps as a way of introducing just how far the rabbit hole goes, can you share your understanding of what led up to that war?
Really, the war was organized by the CIA, and I think this came out finally in the Pentagon Papers. But what happened was when the French left Vietnam, they were defeated at Dien Bien Phu, I think, in 1955 or somewhere in 54 maybe. There was a kind of a void there. The North was communist oriented, and the South, as a result of the fact that there was a threat of communism taking over Vietnam, the CIA set up a puppet government in the South, and that eventually, the head of that government was put in by the CIA, selected and put in by the CIA, and the people didn't want to support this person, and eventually there was a war over who would control the South. The South Vietnamese army was incapable of fighting Ho Chi Minh, who was well trained in guerrilla warfare. During World War II, he was instrumental in fighting the Japanese using guerrilla warfare. But at any rate, the whole thing was manipulated and really started by the CIA, and which this was all classified. Of course, the public didn't know any of this. All we knew that is in 1960, like I mentioned, we were sending advisors there to the South. But these advisors eventually became a force, a U.S. Army force that was actually doing the fighting. So it started escalating into that kind of a war. Anyway, I can't synopsize the Vietnam War in 30 seconds.
Well, no, I mean, I guess where I get the biggest questions are, to me, that whole concept that members of our government can actually go into another country and instigate something like that, I find fantastic. Just, it just kind of blows my mind. And so what kind of strategy, how can they backdoor manipulate that way, without people, without it just being out and blatant and obvious of what they're doing?
Well, these techniques that the CIA uses or intelligence agents use are well honed over the years, and you can go through history of many cases where intelligence agencies have injected themselves into areas in the world and tried to do their will. The policy of what they were doing may have come from various administrations, various presidents, but certainly it's been shown that the CIA can do dirty deeds when they want to.
I don't know. I just find that fascinating. That
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
That they can do that. So then let me kind of take that to the next step. Because we see kind of a similar thing happening in the Middle East. Do you think that the CIA or, you started talking about these cabals, are they manipulating what's going on there as well?
Well, I really don't. I really don't want to get into politics per se. All I can say is I'm convinced that there is a international cabal or secret group that's probably manned by intelligence agents similar to the CIA or the NSA in various countries, and they are controlling information about the UFO phenomenon. They are using this information, possibly back engineering instruments or craft, or I'm convinced that they have back engineered UFO craft and actually flown these craft in secret bases like Area 51, and this is going on. There is a very compartmentalized, tight organization that's doing this. And the reason they're doing it now, I get asked this a lot, why are they doing this? Why are they keeping these secrets? And I think, if you had the ability to, fly hypersonic speeds, turn at 90 degrees very fast, with unusual propulsion systems in energy sources. This is highly valuable information, and could be turned into commercial enterprises. So I think greed gets involved here, and also power. These secrets can be used as, I think, bargaining chips, politically, with other countries. So who knows what kind of deals are going on behind our backs. All I know is that there is, I'm convinced there is an organization, and probably keeping this information away from heads of state, like our president, for example. I doubt if he's aware of what's going on.
Or has the plausible deniability.
Right. They want to keep him having plausible deniability, and he has exercised that very recently. I think 2010, he had a website saying, if you have any questions about how the government operates, blah, blah, blah. And we did. We sent him a question about the UFO phenomenon. They write back and saying that there's no evidence that we're being visited by extraterrestrials, or that there are extraterrestrial craft flying in our atmosphere, period. So he didn't reference any kind of research they did. They just made that blanket statement. Yeah, but there's a lot of evidence, like the evidence in my case and in other cases out there, that if researched properly or talked about, would show that there is evidence. There certainly is evidence of this phenomenon.
For example?
I've got, in my case, over 12 witnesses who can testify to the fact that UFOs were seen over the missile sites, and actually witnesses who observed these things and caused the missile shutdowns. So there's evidence now. It may not be sufficient for everybody. The evidence is a witness testimony and some documentation, which I've accumulated in my case. In the Rendlesham Forest case, 1980, there's just a whole slew of U.S. airmen who observed these objects, including Colonel Holt, and on and on. I've got cases again in my book, and I've listed at least a dozen other cases involving UFOs and nuclear weapons, where there were military people who, are witness to these incidents. So, if you accept testimony in a jury trial from witnesses, that's evidence.
Would you just hear that?
I heard. Is it raining there?
It is. And all this lightning, and it's kind of bizarre, to be honest with you. And anyway.
Yeah, and by the way, there is physical evidence, too. There's evidence.
Let's come back to that in a second. And actually, we're going to be hitting the top of the hour for a break. But one of the things I don't understand is there have been very credible people like yourself, other people with military background, police background, scientific background that have seen UFOs. And why aren't they taken seriously? Any thoughts?
Well, we are taken seriously by many people, even by members of the press. However, that doesn't seem to go very far. The Cabal, I think, is very effective in their disinformation campaign, in keeping this subject as one of ridicule. Also, I think there is some control over the mainstream press by government. Wow. Sounds serious.
It's pretty serious, and it doesn't help. I'm in a room with 10 windows, and so it's pitch black outside, and then it's just boom, and the whole outside lights up, and it's like, whoa. It's the UFOs. They came to get me. We have those incidences here periodically.
Right.
Right. Do you think, this is kind of, usually I save this for the end, but do you think that in time the government will start taking it seriously, or will the government have a lot to lose by acknowledging that there is an extraterrestrial presence here?
Well, the main thing government has to lose is credibility. Of course, they've already lost that, but if they were to admit that, yeah, indeed, they've been lying about this and the phenomenon is real, however, they are unable to do anything about it, then, they've kind of lost their credibility. But I think eventually the government will have to admit there's something to the phenomenon because of all the credible cases that are out there. And I think more and more witnesses are coming forward. And we're going to keep pressing, people like myself are going to keep pressing for disclosure in every way we can.
Okay, well, on that note, why don't we go ahead and take a break, and maybe this storm will pass by a little bit, and we will come back on the other side and talk about some of the physical evidence that's been found. Okay?
Okay, great.
All righty. I'm Dr. Rita Louise. We're here talking to Robert Salas about his new book, Unidentified, the UFO Phenomena, and we'll be back with Robert after these words from our sponsors.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.
You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Are you looking for a cure for boredom? Never worry. IRN's new interactive website introduces a number of ways to pass time while you listen to your favorite show. Choose anything from the IRN Chat Lounge, the Game Lounge, Video Lounge, or the Mood Lounge. These fun, exciting features let you chat in real time with fellow listeners, view live skywatches, play daily posted online games, or pick a show based on topic. The choices are endless. Use your time wisely, keeping it all on IRN.
Who were the gods of antiquity? They've been described as the forces of nature, levels of consciousness, and aspects of our psyche. Stories that depict their incredible weapons, their flying machines, and their amazing adventures are characterized as being the product of our ancestors' fanciful imaginations. But what if the tales of the gods are true? Did the writers, chroniclers, and scribes of our distant past actually document a realistic view of our origin? My latest book, Man-Made: The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, looks at our most ancient legends. Learn of the torrid romances, elaborate plots, violent scandals, and conspiracies that played out in antiquity. Find out the role the gods played in the life and culture we have today. If you want to find out the truth of who we are and where we come from, order your copy of Man-Made today. For more information, go to www.manmadethechronicles.com. That's www.manmadethechronicles.com.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free.
Move past the crossroads in your life and discover alternative solutions to your deepest concerns at soulhealer.com. So whether it's a physical problem, an emotional issue, a question about work, or troubles in your relationships, naturopath and medical intuitive Dr. Rita Louise can help you. Bring peace, harmony, and health back into your life. Schedule a session today. Visit soulhealer.com right away and live the life you've been dreaming of.
You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again.
We only have a couple of seconds before we have to get back to the show, and I want to tell you how you can jumpstart your intuition today. Using my free 50-page introductory guide filled with simple, revolutionary, and proven techniques, you can ignite your intuition and tap into your inner wisdom, all from the comfort of your own home. The Institute of Applied Energetics is the leader in online home study instruction for those interested in becoming a certified medical intuitive, intuitive counselor, or energy medicine practitioner. Now is the time to transform your life and take it to a completely new level. Discover who you are and how you work. Open the door to the world of intuition, health, and healing. You can jumpstart your intuition right away by going to www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and downloading our free guide. Get the opportunity of a lifetime and live the life you deserve. Download your free Jumpstart Your Intuition guide today at www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and begin living a life filled with passion and purpose.
Hi. Can you hear my voice? Imagine how many other people can hear it too. If you have advertising needs, then look no further. The Inception Radio Network currently has openings for on-air advertisements and radio show sponsorships. Given any thought to your target demographic? Inception has you covered there too. Advertising on a network gives you multiple opportunities to advertise on a wide variety of radio show broadcasts, and we have one to fit every advertising need. You know, in recent years, internet radio has exhibited a phenomenal listener growth. An Arbitron Edison survey shows that online radio boosts at least 33 million unique visitors each week and 54 million each month. And that number amazingly continues to grow. And these listeners are a part of many businesses' core demographics. And surveys have shown that internet radio listeners are far more likely than regular radio listeners to spend money on a whole range of activities. You know, internet listeners vote, they dine out and eat fast food, and they grab a cup of coffee. And here's the interesting one. They buy items online at a much higher rate than all other market segments combined. Internet radio also enables businesses to connect with consumers during work hours, where increasingly more lifestyle decisions are being made. Advertise with the best. The Inception Radio Network offers competitive advertising rates to fit just about anyone's advertising budget. Stop by today at www.inceptionradionetwork.com or call us toll-free at 1-888-919-2355. Get the word out. Get results with the Inception Radio Network.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ.
Go deep inside yourself and venture into the realm of the unconscious mind with my Meditating on the Kabbalah guided imagery audio CDs. Discover who you are and what you want in life. Meditating on the Kabbalah can help you to open, clear, and revitalize the energetic pathways of your subtle being. They will support you in your spiritual quest by helping you to access the profound insights and inner guidance you need as you work in alignment with your highest good. Let them help you to release negative thoughts and emotions and clear away any limitations that may be keeping you from experiencing your full potential. Walk down the path to health, healing, understanding, and enlightenment with Meditating on the Kabbalah. Order your copy today at www.soulhealer.com. That's right, that's www.soulhealer.com.
Hello, Inception Radio Network. Would you like your favorite show to be played again live on air? Well, now the choice is in your hands with IRN's live request portal, an easy way to request your favorite show with a simple click. IRN's live request portal now gives you exclusive access to all the shows. How easy is it? Simply type a show name or a guest name, click request, even write a dedication message, and that's it. Try it now. Simply visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com, click on the live request tab under the show menu. Now playing your favorite show is just a mouse click away.
And now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for staying tuned to the second hour of the show. If you can hear in the background, it is raining in Texas, so just please ignore the thunder and the lightning and the sound of pitter-patter of the rain falling down on the ground. We've been talking to Robert Salas about his book, Unidentified and the UFO Phenomena. But before we bring him back on the air, I want to remind you that Just Energy Radio is brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. So if you've been considering learning to become a certified medical intuitive counselor, or energy medicine practitioner, all of their training programs are on sale all through the month of October. So if it's something you've been considering, please do go to appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. Also, a couple of quick announcements again. My feature-length video icon, Deconstructing the Archetypes of the Ancients, is now available for digital download on Amazon.com, as well as my book, E.T. Chronicles, which came out yesterday. So I have all this stuff going on all at the same time, which is just so exciting. Anyway, so let's bring Robert back on and let's keep up with the excitement we have going on here. Roberts, when we went to break, we were talking about evidence of extraterrestrial presence around the Earth. And so you made a comment that there was some physical evidence that has been collected. And we don't often hear much about physical evidence because they say, well, you don't have the smoking gun. But to me, the physical evidence, more than, and I hate to say it, witness testimony, would be more of a smoking gun, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there is physical evidence. It's let me just say it's in three areas that I know of. One is let's take the Rendlesham case. This was 1980, and again, it happened over the period of 3 days. UFOs were sighted. Actually, there was a recording of that on audio tape, but. As a result of one of the landings, there was indentations left in the ground. Colonel Holt actually had a plaster Paris cast of the indentation. The soil in the area where the object landed on the third night had been modified, and this was verified through soil samples taken by actually Peter Robbins. I don't know if you've heard of Peter Robbins. He wrote the book with Larry Warren, Left at Eastgate. But he talks about actually analyzing, getting a soil sample, having it analyzed by 2 labs, verifying that, yes, indeed, the soil had been modified after the result of this landing. I think there was also radioactivity indications higher than background radioactivity that was recorded in that case. And in other cases, radioactivity recordings were made. Thinking over near Mount Palomar, there was a sighting there back in the 50s, and they actually were monitoring radioactivity for another experiment, but a group of UFOs flew over, observed by other witnesses, and the radioactivity indications spiked. The other area is in abductions. It's been shown that many abductees have implants, and these implants have been analyzed. Much of this has been done by Dr. Roger Lear's group, and Dr. Lear has passed on now, but much of that evidence is still available in the form of actual implanted objects, and associated with the testimony of the abductees. Back in Roswell, a few years ago, a gentleman came forward, and I've got this diagram in my book, by the way, and had been looking for artifacts or small pieces of the Roswell crash in the area where the crash took place, and actually came up with a small piece that he had analyzed, showed specifically that the what's called the isotopic ratio. Now, it's a little technical, but various elements have different isotopes here on Earth. For example, magnesium has isotopes here on Earth that are well known. So the ratio of the magnesium isotope to regular magnesium is well known. But in this sample, the isotopic ratio of magnesium was way off the chart, which showed that it was of extraterrestrial origin. So the other area, I think, which is evidence, is the crop circles. I know some of those crop circles are probably man-made, but a great majority of them are not man-made, and it's been shown through analysis of the actual crop itself that the crop was exposed to some sort of radiation and damaged in a certain way at the nodes. So and of course, these objects have been seen over the fields at times when these crop circles were being made. And so I think that too is evidence. Now, again, the question is, will legitimate scientists take this up and analyze it? And there comes the problem again. A lot of scientists don't want to involve themselves in this because of the question of ridicule and how they'll be seen by their peers. So that's where we stand with that. Hello? Did I lose you? Apparently so.
No, you didn't. I was just trying to get rid of the background noise, so I hit the mute button, and then I forgot. Okay. The extraterrestrials took me away. I think I have missing time, Robert. I mean, I met Roger Lear, and he was wonderful. And I think what would be even more wonderful would be to be able to extract one of those implants from someone and have it not go kaput, and be able to actually test out what it's doing or what signals it's transmitting on, or has any of that work been done? Because it's actually been quite a while since I talked with Roger. Have they uncovered, other than finding the devices, do you know if they have uncovered, like, whether they are emitting at certain frequencies or anything?
Yes. Anything? In fact, some of these objects do emit radio signals, and they've actually recorded the frequency at which the emission is taking place. So, again, excuse me, I would go to the Alien Scalpel website. I haven't checked it lately, but if your listeners are interested, they should check out Alien Scalpel website, and they can look at some of the data there. Another thing they found from the detailed analysis of these implants is that the presence of, carbon, I'm trying to think of the name of it, it's escaped me, but it's a certain kind of carbon structure that we're only trying to manufacture right now. In other words, it's not found naturally.
Nanotubes.
Okay. Nanotubes, that's it. Carbon nanotubes, which are being, experimented with now by mainstream science. But these sorts of things have to be manufactured. They are not found naturally, but they were found in these implants.
I mean, does the government ever look at that material, or do they just think that it's, some kind of industrial accident that these people got this metal implanted into their body somehow?
Yeah, this is the problem, Rita. The government is mute on this question. Nobody in the government is saying anything about looking into this at all in an official capacity. Every once in a while, we'll get a whistleblower come forward and say that, yes, indeed, the government has retrieved parts of UFOs, and we are working the problem. In fact, in 1950, I point out, Wilbert Smith, who was a Canadian engineer, happened to be working with the government agency here in the United States on gravimetrics, I think he called it. And he was told that the government did have, was investigating the UFO phenomenon, and there was a secret group that was doing this, headed up by Vannevar Bush. Vannevar Bush was the top scientist during World War II that actually was the high overseer of the atom bomb project, but he was a very high-level scientist. And they had materials from UFO crashes that they were analyzing.
How much material do you think they have back engineered from crafts that have been recovered? How far do you think we've gotten into their level of technology?
Well, I'll tell you a little story that might speak to that. In 1970-something, I was flying a commercial flight here in California, somewhere up north. Happened to run into an old classmate of mine from the Air Force Academy, and we had spent 4 years together, and we were happy to see each other. We met each other on the aisleway of the aircraft. Actually, he was walking one direction, I was walking the other, and he said, "You'll never guess what I'm flying." And I just out of the blue, I said, "I was just kidding. What, a UFO?" And he turned white as a sheet and whispered in my ear, "MiG." Well, and then just kept walking. And I never saw the guy again. I thought he was going to wait for me after we landed, but he took off. I never heard from him again. But MiGs, of course, were the Russian aircraft, Russian-built aircraft. And Project Blue Book was originally part of the Foreign Technology Division, which looked at foreign designs, foreign aircraft designs. And MiG became a kind of an acronym for UFOs. So anyway, you can deduct from that what you will, but because of my close relationship with this guy and the fact that he turned white as a sheet when I mentioned UFOs, tells me that it's very possible that we have at least tried to back engineer one of these craft and flown them.
What about things like our understanding of electronics? And, because we went from vacuum tubes to, circuit boards to things that I went to Houston and went to, Mission Control, and they had the Saturn V rocket there. I think it was Saturn V. And I'm walking around the back, and one of the things that I did is I did drafting and electronic design, and they had these PC boards that had these giant resistors and giant capacitors on them, and I'm going, God, they flew this thing? They weren't even coated, Anyway, they flew this thing to the moon and back. It was just amazing. And the technology that we have today is just even a bigger leap ahead of that.
Right, exactly. So how did we make such big leaps so quickly? There's a good question. Did people just get exponentially smarter, or did we acquire some new technology from elsewhere? So
it's the question that we keep asking.
Yes.
But from kind of time immemorial. But anyway.
Right.
Okay. So let me ask you this. We're talking about this whole UFO phenomena and all of this stuff that is going on that people are talking about, but not the government. Or these secret programs that are going on, potentially to back engineer stuff, hiding craft that have landed. How do they keep a lid on it? How do they keep it contained so that people don't find out?
Let's talk about Roswell for a minute.
Okay.
And that might speak to your question. When the Roswell crash occurred, and again, this is after the cover-up started, first the Air Force said that they recovered a saucer, and then they said, no, it wasn't a saucer. That was a mistake. It was just a weather balloon. There were many, many people that actually knew the truth. People that actually saw, even before Brazil, Mac Brazil, who was the guy that worked on the ranch where one of the crashes occurred. had shown some of these pieces to some of his neighbors. So there were a lot of people that saw the material and knew about the crash even before he went into Roswell and told the local sheriff. The military contacted these people one by one, both in the military and outside the military, civilians, and told them in no uncertain terms that they were not to talk about what they saw. And they were actually threatened. A lot of them were threatened with their lives, the lives of their relatives and their offspring. And it was a pretty bad situation. What our own people were doing, threatening the lives of others, but it worked. The people did not go public. A lot of these witnesses did not go public. It was not until 1978, so Roswell happened at 47, 30 years later, that by chance, Stanton Friedman was able to contact Jesse Marcel, who had been the intelligence officer at Roswell Air Base, and finally get him to talk about it, and that's when it opened up the whole ball of wax known as Roswell. But yeah, the book reference in my book is Witness to Roswell by Don Schmidt and Tom Carey. It's an excellent book on the Roswell subject, but in there he talks about over 300 witnesses who have talked about this now after so many years, but they also talked about being really terrorized and threatened by their own government into not talking. So that partially answers your question. As a result of the 1953 Robertson panel, the CIA decided that they were going to institute a disinformation campaign to discredit witnesses and to discourage witnesses from coming forward in many of these cases, and they've been pretty effective at doing that.
So, other than to cover up the history of lies and deception from the government, why cover it up? What? I had a different question. That was a great question. And of course, now I totally lost it. Anyway, I'm sure it'll come back. I'm just going to move along because I just totally forgot. Anyway, let me go back to this question that I was going to ask, but I didn't. Was the Roswell incident the first situation where a cover-up was put into place regarding UFOs?
I think so. I think where it was the first situation in modern times, anyway, where a concerted effort was made to cover up the fact that these strange objects that we couldn't explain were flying in our airspace. Of course, the Foo Fighter thing in World War II, and then in 1942 we had the sighting over Los Angeles of a ship that has never been explained. Of course, you're probably aware that there were thousands of rounds of shells fired at this what looked like a big blimp, all to no avail. There were even pursuit aircraft sent up, and they fired on it also. And it was just traveling very slowly across the sky. It was around for some 3 hours, and we couldn't even put a dent in the thing. So that was kind of a cover-up.
3 hours? I was familiar with that, but I didn't realize it was over that extended of a period of time.
Right. It was first, I think, seen over Santa Monica, and then and then flew slowly down to Long Beach, and then finally out over the Pacific. But I think the time period was about 3 hours from the time it was first sighted. But at any rate, there was a somewhat of a cover-up there. The military, of course, knew that they'd thrown everything they had at it and couldn't dead it. But Roswell was a significant case because, of course, the news that the Air Force had discovered a disk went all over the world when it was first, published. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, of course, the Air Force tried to pop that balloon by saying, no, it wasn't a disk, it was a weather balloon. And again, they tried to pop that balloon, but in 1994, I think it was, Air Force came out with attempted another explanation. Maybe that wasn't 94, maybe that was a little later.
Oh, they have a new explanation?
Yeah, the latest Air Force explanation about Roswell.
Okay, share it so that I can just kind of laugh on air.
Yeah, it was Project Mogul, which was, again, another type of balloon, but they also talked about using dummies, crash dummies, as part of this experiment. And that was supposedly what was discovered during the Roswell investigation, was the crash dummies, and they were not extraterrestrial beings. They published a big report on this. I don't have the date right now, but it was fairly recently, 94 or 96, 97, something like that.
Do we hear much that comes out of Russia or the former Soviet now that the Cold War is over about their encounters with UFOs or extraterrestrials?
Yeah, there's been many good books written about that. Russian involvement with the extraterrestrial phenomenon. Many of their top generals have come forward and talked about it. So the research is out there of these statements. Now, you won't hear anything officially from the Russian government. I don't think we've seen anything official, but certainly there have been officers and generals come forward with their stories of UFO encounters. Okay,
so I remember what my question was, because I was talking about the cover-up. I've heard stories of, extraterrestrials going into Truman's office and these, grand exchanges of technology and information, because the whole idea of the cover-up doesn't really make any sense in my mind, unless there's something behind it. So do you think that the cover-up is more to cover up the technology grab that's going on?
I think the cover-up right now, originally in 47, let's say it started in 47 during the Roswell crash, I think originally Truman did not want to cause a panic. We had just been through World War II, and of course we didn't, the military didn't know how to handle this subject. They didn't know what they were dealing with. So I think it was decided to, not release this information because it could cause a panic in many areas of our society, which could have been true. We had the 1938 broadcast War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, which seemed to panic a lot of people. You're probably aware of that, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But over the years, because of all the stories that have come forward, credible witnesses have come forward, sightings, photographs, etc. I think the public now, in the most recent polls over the years, at least 50% believe that the UFO phenomenon is real. So I don't think the panic reason is valid. And I think the main reason right now that the secrets are being held has to do with greed and power. In other words, we talked about how some of the secrets could be applied for commercial purposes, and again, there's a little money involved there, and then the power, of course, comes from knowing these secrets. We're talking about. I talk about the UFO phenomenon in my books, and there's very, very strange things that these objects are able to do. Some of them have cloaking abilities. In other words, they can almost disappear in front of your eyes. They can change size. Very strange things, and of course also with the extraterrestrials themselves. So there's probably some very wild and strange knowledge that has been acquired over the years that other countries, other people, other intelligence agents would want to know about. So I think there's that aspect that this information can be, be trading chips or, between intelligence agencies. So greed and power, I think, is the main reason right now that this is being held secret.
There was, and I think somebody had posted something on YouTube about some sighting that was actually in the news, and this was fairly recent. And as the reporter is talking and doing their little blurb, they had a poll that showed how many people believe in extraterrestrials, and for the first half of it, the numbers were actually really high that people believed. And then all of a sudden, it was like they got a calling tree to call in because the numbers just tanked. And I'm like, I don't believe that. I mean, I could see that. Personally, I think the number is over 50%. Maybe 50% that believe that there are extraterrestrials, but I think a much higher number think that we can't be alone, which in my mind means that there are extraterrestrials, because if we can't be alone, that means they could be out there somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's probably closer to 90% of the people that are convinced that we humans are not alone in the universe. It's just ridiculous, the odds or probability that we are the only advanced civilization even in our own galaxy.
So we're talking about, this cover-up for national security. But why pick on the UFOs? There's so much other stuff that they could want to have be secure. It just seems, I don't know. I guess you kind of answered that question.
This is considered, again, going back to 1950, the testimony of Wilbert Smith, and again, your listeners can Google his name. There's been a lot written about him, but he stated that this secret of the UFO phenomenon is the highest held secret by the U.S. government. In other words, it was even above the atomic secrets. This is very potent stuff. It's the most important secret that's being held, obviously, because it could change our entire world, our entire perception of reality, and science that of these advanced beings, and I think there are advanced beings. The science is just something we can't imagine. We just can't imagine what their abilities are.
You stated earlier in the show that you had signed a non-disclosure agreement regarding talking about your encounter in with the missiles. So
Yes.
what made you decide to come forward? And with coming forward, have there been any repercussions associated with it?
Yeah. So I had not talked about this at all. I left the Air Force in 1971. I resigned. I went to work for, as you mentioned, a couple of aerospace companies, and then went to work for FAA for some 22 years. And then in 1994, I decided to resign from my government job in FAA and study teaching, become a teacher. So I was in a bookstore near the University of Washington in Seattle. Happened to pick up a book called Above Top Secret by Timothy Good. I just happened to turn to page 301 of that book, and there was a small paragraph talking about missiles being shut down in Montana in 1967 during a UFO sighting. It was just a small paragraph, but it got me excited because I thought the Air Force may have declassified the incident, and this sounded exactly like my incident. So went home, told my wife for the first time about this incident, and then next thing I contacted MUFON, the local MUFON group. I got a hold of Jim Klotz, who was the co-author of my first book, Faded Giant, and asked him to submit a FOIA request, FOIA request, about this incident that was written up in the book Above Top Secret. I said, don't mention anything about UFOs, just ask about information about this incident where missiles shut down for some unknown reason. He did that. We didn't have a lot of hope that we'd get much done, but the Air Force wrote back and said, you know, this is classified. However, since it's been so long, we're going to declassify this incident. This is the Echo Flight incident, the one that happened March 16th. But at that time, I thought this was my incident because it described what happened to me accurately. So when the Air Force wrote back and said they declassified the Echo Flight incident and they started sending documents about it, I decided to go public because I thought, well, if the Air Force is going to declassify, then I shouldn't be obligated by by this document that I signed. So I went public. I started talking about this. It wasn't until years later when I finally contacted my commander, Fred Mywald, that he informed me that no, we were not at Echo Flight, we were at Oscar Flight. And the incident did not occur on March 16th, it occurred on March 24th. We were finally able to verify those dates. So, but by that time, I had already gone public, I had already contacted a lot of witnesses, and so I decided to continue talking about this. So technically, I'm in violation of that document that I signed, but I have not been approached by any government agent telling me not to talk about this or threatened with violation of this document. And I've been doing this now for over 20 years. Hello? Are we still?
No, it's that mute button. It's been really loud here.
Okay.
Has there been any effort to try to discredit you?
Yes, there has been an effort to try to discredit me, but I've always said that I'm more than willing to talk about any aspect of what I've written down in my books. I'm an open book as far as talking about what I've described, what I've stated as fact, etc. And so people are going to believe what they want to believe. Like I said, my idea of what constitutes proof or evidence may not be the same as yours, but that's fine. That's fine. We have different ideas as to how much evidence is enough evidence. Again, I've done many radio shows. I've done many presentations at conferences, And I'm more than willing to talk about this openly.
Cool. I'm glad you're willing to talk about it openly, too.
You
or else
bet.
we wouldn't really have anything to talk about.
You bet.
If multiple governments are involved in this grand clandestine effort, then who holds the cards or who moves the pieces in this secret UFO game?
Good question. Good question. Yeah, and what are their objectives? I mean, what are they trying to achieve? I can't answer that question. I don't know who the movers and shakers are. There's, like I said, indicators. You probably heard of the Majestic 12 group.
Mm-hmm.
And at times there have been lists of people who were associated with Majestic 12, Hillenkotter maybe. But Vannevar Bush seems to pop up, that name. Now, it's interesting, I will say this, it's interesting that the reply we got from the President Obama's office on the question of UFOs, releasing UFO information, came from the Office of Science and Technology, which is an office directly under the President.
Science, technology, not fantasy and fairy tales?
Well, yeah, but the point is the Office of Science and Technology was started by Vannevar Bush back in the 40s, and Vannevar Bush has been was named by again this Canadian Wilbert Smith as the head of the secret group that was looking at the UFO question. So possibly the Office of Science and Technology under the Executive Office of the President is still part of this secret group. The other thing I will say is I think the U.S. has a lead role in this cabal. And again, this is individuals probably within our intelligence agencies that are working in this cabal in association with other intel agencies in other countries. But as far as naming names, can't do it, don't know for sure.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows, except maybe Alex Jones, but, you know. So other than your encounter in Montana, have you had any other run-ins with extraterrestrials or potential extraterrestrial events?
Oh, you might say so. In 1985, and this is again written up in my book, I decided to come forward with this after thinking about it at length. But I can't deny the reality of this, and I'll try to explain why. In 1985, I was living in Manhattan Beach, California, in a particular house, which I recall specifically, and with my wife and two small children. And one evening, I woke up suddenly for no apparent reason and saw a strange blue light emanating from our living room. I woke my wife up, and she also saw the blue light. I said, I'm going to get up and investigate. So I try to get up off the bed, and all of a sudden I'm paralyzed. I can't move. And this is the first reason I know this was not a dream, is because I remember struggling with all the energy I had, all the strength I had to try to get my mobility back, because I was frightened someone had, entered the house. I turned to my wife for help, and she's unconscious at this point. Well, I was paralyzed, couldn't move, and the next thing I see is in the doorway is this hooded figure. To this day, I don't recall what the face looked like, but it was a hooded figure in the doorway, and I also had the sense that there were other beings in the room. Next thing, I floating off the bed, floating towards the bedroom window, which led to the outside, and thinking that because I had locked that window that evening, thinking that they did not know how to open the window. And so thinking back on that thought, because I remember that thought specifically, they seemed like small beings, in other words, childlike. But at any rate, it didn't matter because they took me right through the window, even though it was closed. I know how strange that sounds, but that's what I recall, going right through the window, through a closed window. Next, on board the craft, on a table, being shown a long needle. They actually put it in front of my eyes to make sure I saw it. This needle was at least 12 inches long, and told me, probably telepathically, because I don't remember any voice, but they informed me that they were going to insert this into my groin area, and that it would not hurt. But when they started to do this, it really hurt like hell. And when I complained about it, the pain went away instantly. After that, I think I was checked over, kind of like a physical checkup, and then escorted through a curved hallway by, again, these small creatures or beings. And again, we were not walking, we were floating all this time. I was floating through this hallway, curved hallway, and next thing I know, I'm in my bed again. The next morning, I don't recall any of this. My wife didn't recall any of this. We didn't talk about it for many, many years, till about 7 years ago. So would that be about 2007? By that time, I had gone public with my other UFO story, and I had spoken with other experiencers, we'll call them, who had similar incidents, and some of these memories started coming back, which again were incredible to me. But I finally asked my wife if she had seen a blue light one night while we were living in Manhattan Beach, and she confirmed that she had. So that convinced me that this was not a dream, and so that's when I went to see a hypnotherapist and started getting back some of these memories. I've had. Wow.
Yes. Just when you need video to just see me jump out of the chair.
Well, this story is pretty dramatic, isn't it?
Ooh.
And so I've seen 4 hypnotherapists at this point, and 4 sessions, and but that's what happened. And like I said, the things that convinced me that this was not a dream. Number one, I've never had any dream like this before or since I thought about this. And my wife confirmed, and I've been with my wife for 45 years now, confirmed the blue light. I remember the pain of the needle. I remember struggling. So I'm convinced this was a real incident and not just something that I dreamt up.
Have you ever thought to have your body scanned for implants?
Yes, and we have. And there has been indications. However, we had x-rays done, and they could not find anything. But we later found out, and again, this was with Dr. Lear's people. We later found out that some of these implants are fibrous in nature and not metallic. So that still remains a possibility that we do have implants.
And so do you, the thunder was thundering. Did you say that you think you've had multiple abduction events happen to you?
Probably, yes. Now, the one I just described, I'm convinced happened, but there were discrepancies in how my wife remembers seeing the location of the doorway, the window, etc., in this house in Manhattan Beach, and we're both very familiar with the layout of the house. But then we moved to Seattle in 1992, I think it was, 93. And there was a house there that we lived in where it lines up with what my wife remembers as the location of the bedroom door and the window, etc. So there's some confusion about exactly where we were, and also she recalls an incident where I was asleep and she was the one that saw the blue light, and I was unconscious. So we think we've had more than one incident. Yeah.
So I think on that note, we're gonna call it a wrap, unless there's any last insights you would like to share with the listeners, because we have like 1 minute before the music comes up.
Well, I hope you'll get my book, or at least research other books about this, especially those of your listeners that might be a little skeptical about this phenomenon. It is real. I can attest to that over 20 years of experience in researching this. I hope your listeners will educate themselves on this subject.
Wonderful. Robert, thank you so much for coming on. I had a great time, learned lots. So
thank you,
always
Rita.
Good. Always good.
Thank
you much. And if they want your book, I'm assuming Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, all that good,
Yes.
Regular outlets.
Absolutely. Also have a website, spiralgalaxy.org. They can go on there and see some of the evidence that I've got supporting my case.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to let you go before the thunder scares me again. And,
Very good, Rita. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right.
That's Robert Salas. His book is Unidentified, the UFO Phenomena. His webpage is spiralgalaxy.org. Next week, we have 2 guests on. In the first hour, Brandon Hurd talking about ancient American secrets revealed. And in the second hour with Jarrett Gardner, what Egyptologists don't want you to see. And so until next week, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy Radio. Be blessed.
Join host Dr. Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio. Point your browser